Welcome. My name is John Handel, and we will continue with the next segment of the Executive Project Leadership Architecture. Uh, Previously, we discussed the three levels of leadership, and now we're going to talk about the four behaviors from the MORE mindset don't end at delivery. The Executive Project Leader Architecture extends each one into the connected leadership system. So manage perception sets how every community reads value, progress, and risk. Own project success extends accountability well beyond delivery. So the project success is what more is PMI is focusing on, but the executive project leadership architecture extends that way beyond delivery. Relentlessly reassess, test assumptions and condition as conditions keep shifting, and expand perspective links project work to enterprise value and the customer. So again, PMI is focusing on expanding that enterprise value, but there's only so much that the project can do. And this architecture extends that beyond the project to show how what it takes to actually achieve enterprise value. So we have an executive leadership ecosystem where executive leadership is involved continuously. They're there to define the corporate strategy all the way up to achieving enterprise value. So at the bottom here, you've got the corporate strategy, which comes up with a business case or business cases. You got portfolio leadership. You got programs that coordinate related projects, and then you've got projects themselves. And for any given project, when you complete that project, it leads to the executive governance gate. And this is another key piece of the architecture is it changes the acceptance of the gate from just a project acceptance to a corporate ready acceptance. So the governing the transition, you're going to have executive leadership involved, you're going to have operational leadership involved, and project leadership. And the focus, you may have had all these individuals in the past to approve the project, but they were looking solely at the project. And this process looks at the project and it looks at operations, and then the executives have to ask, are we ready at the executive level to maintain this new system? So that is the difference in focus in this architecture. So once you get past the gate review and you go into operations, and operations become stabilized, and then executive leadership makes sure that the benefits are realized, you start seeing enterprise performance, and this is where you start seeing your enterprise value. And then the ultimate goal is that the customer sees value in the performance of your company. So the ultimate outcome is that the customer value is increased. So you say, well, now we're at achieving enterprise value, but after a certain amount of time, you're going to find that if nothing else, obsolescence will come into play. Most of the time, it's some type of competitor competition, other unforeseen events, changes in market conditions. Something will be at a executive review, and they'll determine that there's a need to make another adjustment in the strategic objectives, and that will lead to coming back to the beginning again, and the cycle continues. So you come up with a new corporate strategy, and you proceed through the ecosystem back to the top again. So another key idea of this architecture is that no single leader owns success. Projects create the capability, operations sustain it, executive leadership transforms it into enterprise performance, and the customers determine whether value has truly been created. So, which leadership community do you belong to, and which one do you understand the least? The second question often produces the most revealing discussion. And sometimes if you don't understand another part of the business, you'll make wrong assumptions about what it takes to be successful in that portion. And I ran into that in my work in Japan when I did customer acceptance for the Japanese wireless customer that we had. And my immediate supervisor in Japan was a fellow that worked 25 years in systems engineering, developing requirements for switching systems. And he decided that for the requirements for the wireless project, that he needed 6 engineers full-time for approximately 6 months to just work on requirements. And on the back end, to do the customer acceptance, which he never done, he said just needed one person, me. And I had 25 years of experience doing customer acceptance, and I said, there's no way that I can do that alone. But again, his perception was that it looked easy, and there's only one person involved. And if I was looking at his systems engineering, I'd probably question why he needed 6 people, because I didn't understand all the idiosyncrasies of requirements. So be careful when you're assessing an area that you're unfamiliar with, that you may have some false impressions of what it takes to compete in that particular segment. So take this diagram to the ecosystem back to your steering committee and ask 2 questions. Where are we at in the ecosystem? And then who owns that next responsibility? The discussion often reveals governance gaps that were previously invisible. So, number 1, where are we currently at in the ecosystem? And then who owns the next leadership responsibility? The answers often expose governance gaps that were previously indivisible. And that single conversation is where shared leadership begins. Again, the 3 levels of leadership that we discussed earlier. So here's a printable version of this. And that'll conclude this section of the presentation. When we come back, we'll talk about integrated operational readiness. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you in a bit with the next segment on integrated operational readiness.